Yo, what's good, Jets Nation? This is Richie from Jets Media, and in this video, I will be predicting the 53-man roster for the New York Jets. This is just if I was the one calling the shots. This is not my projection of what Joe Douglas will do. This was incredibly difficult. I do not know how Joe Douglas is going to do this because there are some players that I wish made the roster, but I just couldn't because I really had to cut it down to 53 players. And it's really a hard decision to make for Joe Douglas and all these GMs across the league. So this is a really interesting video to make. I've never made a video like this, and it was really fun for me to make this because, I'm playing GM, and that's awesome. So I'm going to go over each position. I'm going to talk about which players made the roster and break down why and all that good stuff. So with that being said, let's jump right into the list. So starting off with the quarterback position, I have three guys that made the roster in Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco, and James Morgan. This is pretty interesting because Joe Flacco is still injured. He has not practiced yet, and he probably will not be ready by week 1. So what do they do with Mike White? Do they cut him and put him on the practice squad, or do they suit him up for week 1 and let him be the QB2 because he's been taking the QB2 reps throughout the whole practice, and he's been doing well. And James Morgan was our draft pick, and he's been playing with the third team. So it's really interesting what they're going to do. I have Sam Darnold, Joe Flacco, and James Morgan making the roster for the quarterbacks. So obviously this is an easy decision to make. Sam Darnold's the QB1, but it's not an easy decision to make when it comes to the backups because they actually talked about quarantining a quarterback, which means they'll probably be on the practice squad and they'll just make sure he's quarantined away from everybody. So just in case there's an outbreak on the team and they need a quarterback to come in, I guess that's what they're going to do. That's really interesting, and that's really crazy how they even have to consider that. But that's the reality of the world we're living in with this pandemic. So yeah, those are my quarterbacks. Going into the running backs, I have Le'Veon Bell, Frank Gore, La'Mical Pirine, and Josh Adams making the roster. I think Josh Adams is going to be, if he gets healthy quick, he's going to be that number 4 guy who provides depth and be a special teams player. Le'Veon Bell, Frank Gore obviously making the roster, and La'Mical Pirine, who is battling an ankle injury. We definitely need Josh Adams to make this roster, especially if La'Mical Pirine's not going to be healthy week 1. So if Josh Adams is healthy, he's going to be that number 3 running back behind Bell and Frank Gore. So those are my running backs. Going into the receivers, this was definitely a really hard one to choose from because there's a lot of names, and hopefully all these players I name are healthy. Brashad Perriman, Jameson Crowder, Denzel Mims, Chris Hogan, Braxton Berrios, Dante Moncrief, and Lawrence Cager. I think if all these receivers are healthy, this is going to be the guys that make the roster. There's a lot of guys that will be cut, such as Josh Malone, Jehu Cheeson. The list goes on and on and on. And also, this is also if Vincent Smith will be on the IR because he had surgery. So he's not going to be on the active roster if he's injured and on the injured reserve list. So Vincent Smith will be on the IR in this scenario. So these are a lot of names. Hopefully they will all be healthy by week 1 because that will be a huge positive for Sam Darnold. Going into the tight ends, I have Chris Herndon, Ryan Griffin, and Trevon Wesco. I wanted to have Daniel Brown make the roster, but I just couldn't fit him in. I know he's a core special teams guy, but I think he's going to be on the practice squad, and if any 3 of these guys go down, then he'll be called up immediately. Hopefully that never really happens because I think this tight end group is a really deep group. I love Chris Herndon. He's a fan favorite, and hopefully he can be healthy all season. Ryan Griffin, we saw what he did last year when he had the reps with the first team all throughout the season. He looked like he was one of Sam Darnold's favorite targets. Obviously, Sam Darnold loves the tight ends because Sam Darnold loves improvising. He loves rolling out of the pocket, and usually the tight ends are the ones that can break free from the route over the middle, and that's what he loved from Ryan Griffin, and that's also what he loved from Chris Herndon in his rookie season. And Trevon Wesco, I think, has potential to take that next step. This is going to his second year. He's going to be the fullback. He's going to be the blocking tight end. He's also going to go out there and run some routes. So I love this tight end group, but Daniel Brown is one of my cuts. And now going to the offensive line. So this was interesting as well. There's one player I wish I could have made the roster, but I just couldn't because of, 53-man roster. It's really hard to cut it down. So I have Mekhi Becton, Connor McGovern, Alex Lewis, George Fant, Greg Van Roten, and then the backups, Chuma Edoga, Jonathan Harrison, Cameron Clark, and Josh Andrews. The one guy I had to cut was Connor McDermott because he's battling with a knee injury. He actually came back to practice today, but hopefully he can just stay on our practice squad, and if there's any injuries to our tackle position, he'll be called up because he's one of our backup tackles, him and Chuma Edoga. Hopefully he does not have to get called up because we do not want any injuries. So those are 9 players on the offensive line that made the roster. Going to the defensive line. The defensive line, I have Steve McClendon, Quinnen Williams, Henry Anderson, Nathan Shepard, Foley Fatukasi, and Kyle Phillips. This is probably our deepest position group on the entire team. I'm super excited for this entire group because we saw what they did last year. They were all healthy last year for the most part. We were the number 3 rushing attack in the entire league. Hopefully this defensive line can get to the quarterback, but they're really good at interior pressure and stopping the run. I mean, stopping the run is definitely their strong suit, but we really hope they can get that interior pressure that opens up for the edge rushers. Steve McClendon, he's the veteran. He's the big brother, the father of this group. He's the reason why this group is so good, in my opinion. Off the field, he coaches up the teams. You guys know, in one of my videos, I broke down Steve McClendon, and I'm so high on him. I think he's such an underappreciated player on this team, and I think Quinnen Williams has a chance to really break out this year and prove why he was the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft. So I really am excited for this group. Probably one of our deepest groups on the entire team. Going on to our outside linebacker edge rush position. Jordan Jenkins, Terrell Basham, Frankie Luvu, and Jabari Zuniga. So these are 4 guys I think can make the roster, and they'll provide depth on special teams like Frankie Luvu. But, you know, the edge rusher position is definitely a weak spot for this team. I love Jordan Jenkins. I think Basham has a chance to take the next step, but he's also injured. So guys like Frankie Luvu and Jabari Zuniga is going to have to step up, but also Jabari has been battling a quad injury as well. So this is a really interesting group. Hopefully they can take that next step. I think Jordan Jenkins is going to have a big chance to really solidify himself as a dominant edge rusher in this league. We saw what he did last year. He had 8 sacks, which is really, really good, and it's underappreciated in my opinion. And we know Jordan Jenkins' strong suit is stopping the run, but can he consistently get to the quarterback? Can he hit that 10 sack margin? Because if he does, that's really good. And he's been getting better and better every single year. So yeah, this is definitely one of our weakest spots on defense, but I do think there's potential. I like Frankie Luvu, and Jabari has a lot of potential as a rookie. Hopefully he can get healthy and play some games this year. Going into the middle linebacker position, I have Avery Williamson, Neville Hewitt, Blake Cashman, and Peanut. But Peanut, who is Patrick Onawaso, I think I said his name right there, he's battling a knee injury, so that's a really interesting topic. Is James Burgess going to make the roster? Because he's battling an injury as well. So if Patrick Onawaso is on the injured reserve list or he's just out, we're going to have 3 starting middle linebackers in Avery Williamson, Neville Hewitt, and Blake Cashman. So do they add James Burgess, like I mentioned, but he's battling injuries as well. So there's a lot of question marks when it comes to this middle linebacker group, but we saw what Greg Williams did last year. He is so good that he can get anybody off the practice squad and make them into a really good player. So hopefully Avery Williamson, Neville Hewitt, and Blake Cashman can hold it down and be our starting middle linebackers, and they'll be in a constant rotation. And then going to our cornerbacks, Pierre Desir, Bless Austin, Brian Poole, Arthur Millette, Nate Harrison, and Quincy Wilson. And Bryce Hall will be on the injured reserve list is my prediction because he's still battling an ankle injury over from college. This was tough because I had to cut guys like Lamar Jackson, Javelin Guidry. I initially had Lamar Jackson make it the roster, but I realized I was over 53 man, so I had to cut down some people, and he was one of the guys I had to cut out. And I think this is a solid cornerback group. I really wish Lamar Jackson could have made the roster, but hopefully he will stay in the practice squad and not get claimed from another team, and he can be on the Jets in the future, and we can develop him. So, yeah, this is the cornerback position. Going into the safeties, Marcus May, Bradley McDougald, Ashton Davis, and Matthias Farley. These are the 4 guys. I think this is a pretty easy decision for Joe Douglas to make. Matthias Farley is more of a special teams guy, which was why we need him, and he's a veteran guy that Ashton Davis relies on. Ashton Davis also relies on Marcus May and Bradley McDougald tremendously. So this is a really solid group. Obviously, Jamal Adams is gone, but I really am happy with the safety group that we have here with these 4 guys. And then lastly, special teams. We got Sam Ficken at kicker, Braden Mann at punter, and Thomas Hennessy at long snapper. So this was the 53-man roster I came up with. There's guys that we had to cut, which is unfortunate, but there's one guy that I'm excited that made the roster. Obviously, it's not 100% guaranteed he makes the roster, but this is my projected roster. Wide receiver Lawrence Cager. I had to make sure he made the roster because he's a fan favorite. Everyone wants him on the team, and he will be our 7th receiver on the team if he makes the roster, and especially if Vincent Smith's on the injured reserve list, that opens up a spot. So leave a comment down below what you guys thought of this projected roster. Do you guys think I missed anybody? Do you guys wish I cut somebody else, or do you wish somebody else made the team? This is my projected roster. It's going to be really interesting to see what Joe Douglas does. I'll make a video breaking down the 53-man roster when it actually comes out, because this is obviously projected. This is not the final cuts. So yeah, make sure you guys leave a comment down below, and I appreciate all the support on the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Let's go Jets. Peace.